I have the pleasure to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Peter Blinston, that is here to talk about the Painted Dog project. Peter Blinston grew up in England. He is a good example of the conservation entrepreneur that doesn't come from a traditional academic background. Peter studied management and then spent some of his early years in the cruise industry, charming ladies overseas. But he always knew that there was a passion for animals there that one day he would fulfill. And through his own will, he found his way to Zimbabwe to volunteer in African wild dog research project there. And this was in the late 90s. So for the last 17 years, Peter has been honing his skills and bringing his skills from previous experience to develop what is today a model conservation program in the world. I've been following African wild dogs closely because of my interest on wild canids, and I've been following their work very closely. And I have seen the amazing achievements that Peter and his team, including Jealous, present here today, have managed in what are relatively difficult circumstances and working with a species that is elusive, that uses huge home ranges, and that they have a tendency to move from place to place without giving you much clues as to which direction they might go to. So all credit to Peter, to Jealous, and to the rest of the team for the wonderful work they do in Hwange National Park in southern Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Claudia. I don't have much left to say, to be honest. But it's very nice to be here again with you all this afternoon. Some nice familiar faces, people that have visited us in Zimbabwe, some that might come back, and some people that might be joining us next year. So, painted dogs, African wild dogs, they have so many names, it gets a little bit confusing, but it's the one and the same animal. It's estimated that there are as few as 6,000 of individuals left across the whole of Africa. The threats to them vary from loss of quality habitat to disease is a threat, as with the Ethiopian wolves, poaching, road kills, and unless we address these situations, there's a very real possibility that the painted dogs will go extinct in our lifetime. So what do we have to do? We have to work with these local communities that share their lives with the painted dogs. And we need your support to make that possible. We need your support to help us change the lives of these local communities so that in turn they help us to save the painted dogs. There is a real possibility for you to get involved, to make a difference, make a real lasting difference and save this wonderful, enigmatic species. So lives, changing lives. I was about the same age as these kids. That's my son. When I first learnt about painted dogs, as Claudio said, I was growing up in England, in Manchester, and I watched a documentary on TV called Solo. It's about the dogs in Tanzania. Catherine's nodding, she's watched the film. I was captivated by these animals. It's hard not to be, especially when you start to work with them, you get to know them a bit more. But we all go through some various life changes, and fast forwarding a few years, I was at home there. Now I'd moved south from Manchester down to the south coast of Bournemouth, and I was at home and I was painting the wall, decorating my lounge wall. You know, you have those trays and like those roller things, and I was stood there and I was like painting away like this, and I thought, no, this is not it. Maybe it was the colour, I don't know. Perhaps it was the colour of the paint or the smell, I'm not really sure what it was. But I put everything down, and my long-standing girlfriend at the time was there, and I was like, we need to talk. Well, fast forwarding a few years, I ended up working with this fantastic species. I did finish painting the wall, but there was a couple of years later by the time I'd finished. And getting to know this species, it's very easy to fall in love with painted dogs. This hot, very evolved social system, this joint caring for the pups, the old, the sick, the injured. They have this real spirit about them. You see them tackling lions. The lions are trying to kill the pups, and you see the dogs out there defending their pups from a much larger, much stronger competitor. And they do it very well, so long as they have the right numbers. This little video clip gives you an idea of the spirit of the dogs. Those are hyenas. For those of you who came up to my table today saying, oh, hyena. That's a hyena. And those are dogs. As I said, it's very, very easy to fall in love with this animal, and the closer you work with them, the longer you work with them, the more and more affected you become by them, and it becomes very personal when one dies. So I ended up in Zimbabwe. Just to give you an idea, Wangi National Park's here. This is where we undertake most of our work, most of our community work that I'll talk about in a moment. We define that as our core operating area, where we do most of our conservation efforts take place there. I arrived in Zimbabwe. I joined Greg Rasmussen. He was doing research work on the painted dogs, and I arrived in Zimbabwe. And it was my great pleasure to meet this character. Sit down. You're getting more applause than I am. But it's very deserved. Those of you who have been kind enough and fortunate enough to visit us in Zimbabwe know what a special character this guy is. He's taught me so much. We were the anti-poaching unit. We were the trackers. We were everything. We were eating this terrible suds and these little dried fish, salted fish matemba things that he cooked, and they were awful. You got to be really, really hungry to eat that stuff, and we were eating it twice a day, I can tell you. It was awful. Out there protecting the dogs, doing the best we could. This is one of the first dogs that I ever saw, and it was the first 6 months or so of my time in Zimbabwe. This is iSpot. And those of you who visited us again know iSpot's story, and he's really become an icon for us. How his life depicts the life of painted dogs. How from when he was born, his parents were killed. They were shot by farmers. He went off, found his brother who'd already left the pack. His brother got killed, and iSpot's raising his pups, and so on and so on and so on. That's painted dogs for you. It's a really emotional roller coaster. And Jealous and I, we were the guys. We were out there anti-poaching. We'd be walking in the bush. And I remember one day we were walking there, and he's in front of me, of course, because I got no idea where I'm going. So I'm following him, and then I just like bumped into him like this because he'd stopped. And we looked up, and there's this huge elephant. I mean, we were so close to it. We were like looking up at it. And you know, those of you who know elephants, they get even bigger. And they're big enough as it is, but they seem to get bigger, and they kind of lift their head and they look down their trunk at you. And we sort of backed off a few paces, and we were like giggling like school kids. And he's like, do you want to go closer? And I'm thinking, how much closer can we go? I mean, we were nearly underneath the thing. So I was like, yeah, okay, why not? And we just took like half a step, and the whole bush around us erupted. There were elephants running every which way, and we just stood there. So that's the kind of trouble he got me into. But the shoe was often on the other foot. And this is not as bad actually as it looks. I did actually help him fix the tire in the end. I'm not just like, you know, I'm not just stood there saying get on with it, you know. But he's been with me for 17 years now. He's been by my side. He's absolutely an invaluable component of painted dog conservation. He's a role model to people in his village and surrounding communities. He's a Disney Conservation Hero Award winner, and he's very much a hero to me. And when I've finished rabbiting on, he'll come up here on stage, and you can ask him some questions if you like. So that's how painted dog conservation as it is today has evolved from this early work into a well-rounded organization. But as we said, you have to change lives. But it's not only people's lives that change. We change the lives of dogs. And this dog typifies the impact that intervention with one animal can make. This is Vasili. She was an orphan, turned up. This is just at the gates of our rehabilitation facility. Jealous, of course, recognized her. He knew immediately something was wrong. This dog shouldn't have been where it was on her own. He knew the parents must have been killed. So we brought her into our facility. We kept her there for a little while. And then when the time was right, we managed to release her back into the wild with a pack that we'd formed out of all these waifs and strays. And that pack didn't do so well. They floundered, and in the end, Vasili, she disappeared. But we knew she was still alive. We'd get the odd sighting now and again that told us she's still around, she's still hanging in there. She was a very smart dog. And sure enough, a year or so later, she turned up with 6 pups of her own. She'd met a male. We don't know how many pups they had, but we saw 6. Those pups have gone on and grown. This is Socks. Some of you know Socks. Some of you have seen Socks when you've joined us out there in Wangi. Socks has had 19 pups. Yeah? 2 litters. She's had a second litter this year of 9 pups. Socks is Vasili's daughter. 2 of her sons have formed another pack, and they've had 10 pups. Another son of hers, the one on the left there is called Painted, joined these 2 females and formed another pack. And we know they've had litter this year. By the time we left Zimbabwe, we didn't know actually how many pups they'd had, but they'd had a litter. And Vasili, this is Vasili. This was Vasili about a month ago. And her mate, Temba, she's had another litter. So that action, that single action of saving the life of one dog has contributed to like 4 functional packs, at least 4 functional packs in Wangi National Park, and it's contributed to the production of at least 35 other dogs into the population. And that's about a quarter of the population of Wangi National Park from one dog, one action, the intervention to save one dog. But it's people's lives that we need to change. People like Tendai, the people from the local villages that come into our bush camp, and we work with them. We inspire them. We inspire them with nature. We inspire them so that they grow up. At the very least, they understand and they love wildlife. And if you don't understand something, if you don't care about something, you're not going to protect it. And this is what we need these people to do. We need them to help us protect the wildlife, to protect the dogs. This is just a little bit of a fun clip.
We love protect dogs! We love Blinston!
Do you think those kids are inspired? You know they are, because you've been there with us. Yeah? Who knows what they will do in their future life, but we know that they love dogs. And that if they love them, they'll take action to save them. The simple provision of water, we take it so much for granted. Yeah? Anybody in here that can't go home and turn a tap on and get water? Yeah? Of course you can. In the rural villages around us, that isn't a reality. We provide water, simple, borehole, a hand pump, people have clean water. Simple as that. With that water, they can help themselves. They can grow better vegetables. And what we've seen as a consequence of that is that their attendance at school has increased. Their performance in school has increased. The retention of teachers in school has increased. At the schools has increased. So the quality of education that they're receiving has also increased. But it's not just about local communities, it's people like you. Painted dog conservation is changing people's lives. We had a lawyer, I'm not going to make any lawyer jokes because there might be some in the room. We had a lawyer who came out to the project and she's now a politician. I'm not sure that's a good thing either. But at least she's a politician for the Green Party in Netherlands, so I think there's progress there. We had a mechanic who came out to work with us, and he now studies cheetahs with his wife that he happened to meet when he was with us as well. We've had a teacher, a school teacher from America, who came out to the project. He actually set up our education program. Set up all of he designed our visitor center. He now runs a conservation project in South Africa. So people's lives are changing, and it's changing for the better in terms of wildlife conservation and obviously painted dog conservation. Everything we do for the dogs has wider ramifications. If the dogs are being protected, it has a benefit to all of the wildlife. And that's very much typified by, like, for example, our anti-poaching unit. These guys, they've collected more than 20,000 snares. That's 20,000 animals' lives that have been saved, not just dogs. So, as I said, that intervention, saving one dog, one day at a time, changing one person's life, one day at a time, makes a difference. It takes time. It's a long, steep hill that we're climbing, and we can't rest for a moment. It takes time, it takes perseverance, it takes real determination and guts, but we're winning. This year we've seen more dogs in Wangi than we've ever seen before. Jealous and I have seen packs of the size that we have never seen in 17 years. I've got people sending me emails, photographs, sightings of dogs. People we've never dealt with before, but now they're dealing with us. And they're like, oh, we've seen dogs. We've not seen dogs since 1996 in this area, but they're seeing them now. So there's a lot of encouraging signs, and we need to continue with that work. I want to tell you a little bit of a story about this lady. This is Maria. And again, those of you who've been out to the project know Maria is likely to be the first person to greet you when you arrive at Painted Dog Conservation. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady, wonderful ambassador for us. And she's travelled over. She hasn't been to the States yet, but she has been to England and given lots of talks. She's a lot better at it than I am. She does it every day. There's a few words from Maria.
My name is Maria Njamba, working for Painted Dog Conservation as a receptionist and a tour guide. It gives me self-esteem. People used to see me by the road selling baskets. If donors stop supporting us, I will work for free.
Oh, I shouldn't have put that bit in there. I thought I'd edited that out. I know you don't want Maria to work for free. I left it in there on purpose because I know you don't want Maria to work for free. This is your chance. You can become part of the solution. You can help us, you can contribute to our work, you can help change lives of people like Maria and the local communities around us, and you can help save the painted dogs in the process. Thank you very much.